Brazil is better than Colombia. It just is. If you're looking for a wife or a long-term relationship, you will never find a quality girl in Medellin, Colombia anyway. When I do these comparisons, look, you guys aren't going to Barranquilla, you're not going to Cali, you're not going to Santa Marta. A lot of what I'm saying in this video does not apply if you're going to those places. You go to Medellin. 99% of people go to Medellin. So when I say Colombia, I mean Medellin. You're never going to find a wifey in Colombia, aka Medellin. They're low IQ. You're probably not going to be happy long-term living in Colombia versus Brazil. It's just a better country with better people, more developed, better women. And we're going to talk about that real quick. I'm Casey Redbeard. I lived in Medellin, Colombia for about 6 or 7 years. I've been living in Brazil for, I don't know, was it 2 or 3 years now? I lost count. I'm fluent in Spanish. I'm conversationally damn near fluent in Portuguese as well. I speak it pretty well. I can survive dates. I do vlogs on the channel. You guys see me speak Portuguese all the time. 10 years plus traveling all over Latin America, mostly Colombia and Brazil. No one on the planet's more qualified. Let's get into it. So better personalities, okay, of the people and the women. Look, this is a dating channel. You guys are probably more interested in the dating aspect. So let's go through this quickly. With Brazilian women, their personalities, I would say when they're on a date with you anyway, is like a kid on Christmas morning. Happy, appreciative, present, so loving, that they're very touching. Like in most places, actually, Brazil has a lot of different cultural regions and stuff, but most of the time they're just like touching you, caressing you. It's called cariño in Spanish and Portuguese. Social, charming. You're not going to get quite the same commonality of physical beauty in most places in Brazil anyway that you would get in Colombia, but you're guaranteed a good personality, which is in Medellin. No matter how beautiful she is, she's going to be entitled, whiny. She's going to be into sex work. If she's living in Medellin, she's going to have very, very low IQ and not be able to contribute anything into your life besides sexual gratification. So overall, these Brazilian women just have a very carefree attitude. You can take a Brazilian girl to the beach and just drink caipirinhas with her, and a girl like Rio, even a baddie, will be happy to just meet up on the beach with you. You don't need to spend a lot of money on them. If you're dating a girl in Medellin, look, you're not the first gringo she's had. I'm dating the girl that doesn't date gringos. Oh my God, bro. Oh my God. Sad. I feel sad for you. They're going to be entitled. They're going to want to extract a bunch of money out from you. Brazilian women, they don't think like that. At least most of them. Okay. We're going to talk about the differences in the cities. Fuck it. Let's do one right now. In Rio, the pay for play problem is bad, but not nearly as bad as Medellin, not nearly as bad as Miami, United States, certainly. And Sao Paulo, it is really bad. I'm going to put some Brazilian women on the screen of Sao Paulo. They're probably not what most of you guys would consider super beautiful girls, just the average woman walking around Sao Paulo. The beautiful girls are a lot more rare there, so they're going to be a little bit more monetized. But look, this is not a unique Brazil problem or Colombia problem. This is kind of like overall, but I'm just saying your odds of finding a woman who hasn't done pay for play, that's, a good woman with good values, isn't selling her body for a cheap paycheck, is much higher in Brazil than it is in Colombia. And again, as I've said, Barranquilla, Santa Marta, other parts of Colombia. I don't want anyone in the comments saying, but he's only talking about Medellin. You're not going to live in Cali, bro. You're not going to live in Barranquilla. I've never been to Barranquilla personally, but everybody I know there, they crack, like, apparently it's just super underdeveloped, incredibly hot, incredibly boring, nothing to do, no nice places, no nice restaurants, nothing fun. It's just a very depressing, underdeveloped, shit third world city from what I've heard about Barranquilla. And look, the dating is really good there. Maybe you can go there, find some good girls and take them out. But Colombians in general are going to be low IQ. That's the next thing I want to talk about. There was a famous incident I talk about here. I call it the gas truck incident. Long story short, a guy drove a gas truck. It had a nasty accident, flipped over on the freeway. And then the local townspeople started hitting it and fucking with it, trying to take the gasoline out of it. He's like screaming, "Oh my God, like, don't do that. The tiniest spark and we're all dead. Like, get away, get away." I mean, even if you fill up your buckets, every receptacle in your house full of gasoline, you couldn't possibly carry more than 20, 30 bucks of gasoline back to your house. It's low. I mean, even if you knock it open, it would spray everywhere. Like, how would you even pick it up? It's not about like desperation of, poverty. And of course, some genius eventually caused a spark. I think he tried to pull the car battery out, but it blew up, killed a bunch of them. Other things I've seen in Colombia is like on the official government, immigration websites in Colombia, they have multiple things misspelled. Like there's just typos and misspellings all over the place. Obviously, we talked about the gas truck incident. And sometimes in Colombia, when you're trying to communicate with somebody and you think you're like saying the word wrong and you're like, sure, like, no, I know that word, and they don't understand what you're saying, it's because they're literally so stupid, they don't know what that word is. It's not that you pronounce the word wrong. For example, a lot of times, like, what's a random example? I'll say like, okay, not an airplane, not like a passenger commercial airplane that like flies and takes passengers like Boeings and shit, but like bombers. Like, for example, you know, in the news fairly recently, a stealth bomber flew over Iran and dropped a bomb and like destroyed, you know, one of Iran's nuclear facilities. There are many Colombians that are not aware that like bomber type airplanes, so you're like, no, like I'm saying the word right. Like I forget in context like when I said this, but like, you know, you're saying the word right. You know, your Spanish is fucking sick and fucking awesome like my Spanish is. Your pronunciación is like very, very good. That means pronunciation if you didn't catch that. But they literally don't know what like a bomber type airplane is, or they've literally never heard of Barack Obama or something. You just can't believe like what type of rock are these people living under. Okay, in Brazil, that's not nearly as much of a problem. Look, maybe the smaller places, the smaller towns. I'm not saying that they're all geniuses, but in general in Brazil, you're going to get, especially in Sao Paulo and Rio, you're going to be talking to a girl that, you know, mentally would be on the level of a girl back in your home first world country, a Canadian girl and an American girl, minus the masculinity, the entitlement, and the comically high standards and the generalized hatred of men. But mentally, like understanding of world knowledge, knowing that, like, I don't know, what an aircraft carrier is. I don't know why I'm focused on like military examples, not something I would typically, hey girl, nice to meet you. Let's talk about aircraft carriers, but you know what I mean? Just like, you know, whatever. So anyway, we're gonna move on now to another important point, which is your ability to make local friends in each country. But just to wrap up, Colombians have worse personalities. They're more entitled. They want more princess treatment. They're more likely to just want you to extract money and just be boring, not really offer, just kind of like that, kind of like a doll where you pull a string and like the little doll says like 4 or 5 phrases like, haha, ay, que chimba, que pasa pues, amor, ay, no, que pecado. Like they're just kind of gonna say like the same like 4 or 5 phrases versus Brazilian women. You could actually talk to them like after you've, you know, done your thing, you know, you actually want them to stick around in many cases, charismatic, charming, higher IQ. And now we're going on to the next thing I said, which is ability to make local friends. You're not going to make local friends ever in Medellin, period. The only people who would pretend to be your friends in Medellin are the very, very poor, impoverished, low-class people that just want you to be like the gringo who pays the bill, basically. Groupthink affects people everywhere. It's not just a low IQ Colombia phenomenon. You look at things like, you know, the year 2020, sorry. You look at the year 2020 and you see, you know, how easy it is to brainwash people and get people to think anything you want. It's not a unique Colombia phenomenon, but they're very much under groupthink and they hate gringos. It's been the groupthink, the social conditioning, the forethought, whatever you want, the ideology that they're fed is that gringos are what, like, we're just bad, dirty people. We only come there for, you know, sexual tourism or whatnot. And, you know, it's kind of funny about this whole, you know, we're going to go into this. Let me finish here and I'll jump in another point. But in your ability to make local friends, especially in Sao Paulo and Rio, is going to be higher. Now, I wouldn't think in other cities, like we're going to talk about other places like, you know, Recife, which is the northeast, Manaus, the north, Fortaleza, northeast again, Florianopolis, the south. Actually, no, the south would be different, but I wouldn't think in the northeast it would be super easy to make local Brazilian friends. You could, but let's be honest. Passport bros, we're a special breed, okay? We are entrepreneurs, most of us, where a lot of us are into like red pill. You know, we follow creators like, you know, Myron Gaines or Andrew Tate or whatever, things like that. We may be into biohacking or crypto or digital marketing. And it's just not a lot of commonalities that you're going to find with people in a lot of other cities, but certainly Rio and Sao Paulo, you would. And I remember I made more local friends in a week of being in Brazil than I did 7 years in Colombia. They just don't like foreigners. So let's go into that gringo perception. Now, admittedly, most girls, especially of the higher class, beautiful ones that are educated, maybe speak English, that you would want, they just prefer local guys. Thai girls prefer a Thai guy, despite what we want to think is like, maybe you're a white guy, watch this, but I'm white and I'm 5'11", which is the, you know, Thai equivalent to 6'3", and I have blue eyes or bluish, whatever it is, or I'm black and this and that, or I'm whatever you are. No, the top girls and the top countries typically want their own kind with, you know, many exceptions. But In Brazil, you definitely see a lot more just in general accepting of gringos, accepting of other cultures. In Colombia, they kind of think that their culture is superior and stuff like that. I might do a whole reaction to this video, but there was some girl, she was like going on a rant about how she hates seeing all the gringos in her nightclubs and her, nightlife spots in Colombia. And she's like, you can tell that they're gringos. This is her word speaking. She's like, yeah, I hate it. You walk in there and like, oh my God, first thing you can tell it's a big group of gringos because they're white, super tall, and they're spending a lot of money. And then she goes on to say, and like, oh, like when you could have a paisa guy, paisa means a guy from Medellin. When you'd have like a local paisa, why would you want one of these? When you see these girls, dancing on there, like you're like, girl, like, why would you want one of these gringos? I don't know. Maybe the reasons you just listed, that they're white, super tall, and rich. Do girls not like white, super tall, rich? Let's even take white out of the equation because white is exotic to them, right? Like it's a country, they're Latinos, so you would think, and let's be honest, in advertisement, it's all, the white girls, any of you guys who run, digital marketing, ad creative, it's always a white blonde that performs better than the black chick or the Latina. And, for many people, the European white center to beauty, but let's even forget that. Just being tall and rich. What girl wants a tall, rich guy? I don't know. Very, very low IQ, very, very xenophobic. Let's talk about safety now. So Brazil has a lot of crime. Okay, the problem with Brazil is that it has like the monthly salaries that they pay the people are pretty similar to their neighbors in Peru, Argentina, Paraguay, Colombia, not Venezuela, but like all their neighbors in Latin America, Ecuador. Brazil has a similar minimum, like, monthly payment or whatever salary. It may be a little bit higher, but the cost of living is like 3 times higher. So you have like, they pay what their neighbors pay, like a Brazilian, monthly salary, maybe similar to what a Colombian makes, maybe a little bit higher, but maybe similar to what a Colombian makes, but his cost of living maybe 2 to 3 times higher. So there's a lot of petty crime, a lot of like guys on motos who will like, drive by and try to steal your phones and stuff like that. That I would say like, quick robbery and stuff like that, even like dangerous armed robbery. It's probably a bit higher in Brazil from what I can, from my take on it, from living in both countries for many, many years. But you're probably not going to be, held up at gunpoint because you're in a bad area of like Rio de Janeiro, although it can happen in good areas, but let's not get a whole tangent. The main thing you're worrying about is getting drugged and robbed. I have a friend, you can't see him right now, but he's sitting over there. Australian, one of my mates here, one of my good mates from Australia, mate, cranky. Actually, they don't say cranky. Actually, they kind of do because anyway. He went on a date the other day, and it didn't even cross my mind to like give him like the talk, right? The talk meaning like, hey, listen, never let your drink out of your sight. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. If she's too sexual, blah, blah, blah. Like this dude just like, he met a girl on Tinder and he went on a date with her. And again, and of course, he came back in one piece, he was fine because this is Brazil. Rio, they're starting to like do, like, it's not completely unheard of, but it's like, if it's Colombia, if it's happening like, I don't know, 150 to 200 druggings a month. Most of them don't get reported, so it's really hard. But maybe there's like, 8 or 9 or 10 deaths. And I would say probably 98% to 99% probably survive their ordeal. Let's say there's 5 deaths. Let's say in a good month. A bad month, there's 5 deaths from scopolamine. That's the drug that women put in the man's drink, and he drinks it, and he kind of becomes a zombie, and he'll do whatever they say. They give a lot of the guys a clonazepam now, which is... it's not Xanax, but it's like Xanax. I think Xanax is alprazolam. I might be screwing it up, but they give them like liquid Xanax and make them fall asleep. But a lot of times they're even dying from that too. But they've gone away from like traditional scopolamine sometimes. But anyway, it doesn't really happen so much in Brazil. That's my point. Another advantage of Brazil, why you'll be a lot happier here and find a wifey here in Brazil, is because there's just so much to do here, right? There is the north. There is the south. So the north of Brazil is like hot morenas that look like Pocahontas. You get a lot of that up in the north. The northeast is more, so your north cities would be like Belém and Manaus. And then your bigger cities on the northeast would be Fortaleza and Recife. And Recife going to be like more black influence. I'm going to do a whole video about Recife has the most beautiful girls, like in terms of like common, like Sao Paulo has the most beautiful girls, but they're not from Sao Paulo, and you have to go to like these ultra swanky nightclubs where they're all prostitutes to even like see them in Sao Paulo. But they have like the hottest girls. But I mean, just like day to day, like probability of seeing a hot girl, Recife is the best, with one caveat that you like black chicks or like mixed black chicks. If you don't like black chicks, you're fucking up. But I mean like mixed, not like dark, not girls are like the color of my t-shirt, but like mixed, black girls. But if you don't like that, you could try Fortaleza. Also has some really beautiful girls that are a bit more of like, they have everything, tan, white. A lot of them are what they call parda, like parda, parda, which means kind of like slightly tan or whatever. And they each have different vibes. You get different levels of Gringo advantage. Then there's like, the Southeast, which I won't talk about too much. Then there's, Rio has its own vibe. That's like a lot of like black and morena, but also some white. Sao Paulo just is a mix of everything, white and black. Then the South is like a whole bunch of white people. Like me walking through the South of Brazil, until I open my mouth, nobody would know that I wasn't Brazilian. And that's the most like first world, good infrastructure, cleanliness, everything's organized, everything just like looks like, structurally the streets and the roads, it makes sense. There's no downed power lines and dog shit everywhere like you see in a lot of Brazilian cities. And it just so happens to be where all the people of white ancestry happen to settle. But don't notice that. Don't notice that. That's not a coincidence. And by the way, Rio and Sao Paulo are very well put together cities, and they have a whole bunch of, non-white people. So it's not just that. I say that in jest. So, okay. Now, let's go on to, just continue on this thing. If you get your residency in Colombia and you get a bank account there and you learn the language and you invest, you basically got Medellin, and that's it. You could go to Bogota, but you'd be having terrible weather. You'd be up at altitude where you lose your breath going up a flight of stairs. You'd be where genetically they look nothing like the typical hot Colombians you're used to. And it wouldn't be like beautiful Colombians. It'd be very unattractive women. So it's like, why would you go to like be a passport bro for dating purposes in a city where the majority of women are like not hot? Also, Bogota is just not like a great city. It's, dangerous, kind of depressing. It's gray and cold and drizzling rain every single day. You can get like 1 or 2 nice sunny days, I think, but you're probably not going to go to Bogota. Again, you could like fly girls in. You could visit Cali and Barranquilla, also cities with good potential. Look, you could try to go to Ibagué or some, maximize your advantage, but you're going to end up in Medellin, despite what you think. And in Brazil, you just unlocked access to a whole bunch of cities, right? You can live in Rio, you can live in Sao Paulo, you can go to Florianopolis, all the cities, Recife, Fortaleza. I would say like long-term livability, you're probably going to wind up in Sao Paulo, Rio, Florianopolis. Those would probably be, I may be forgetting one. Fortaleza, possibly. But as far as like having other foreigners that you can make, because again, passport bros, like we're a unique breed, right? Like you're probably, again, if you're anything like me, again, you're into digital marketing, hustle culture. We work really hard. We have high standards for ourselves, workout, biohacking, crypto, red pill mindset. You're probably going to make, not a whole lot of friends that are locals. You may make some, and again, your ability to do that will be much higher in Brazil. And that's one thing that I love about this place is like, getting a digital nomad visa and, living here, staying here. I have access to so many places, so many different vibes. I can, experiment where, I'm treated the best. And there's actually more people on the South American continent that speak Portuguese than there are Spanish speakers. So that's why you'll be happier in Brazil. That's why you'll find a much better chance of finding a wifey in Brazil. And that's why Brazil is just overall, it's more educated, more developed. It's just an overall much better city. If you guys want to outsource your entire dating life to a virtual assistant and go on up to 3 dates a week with baddies, like the ones that I'm showing on the screen without you having to lift a finger, then go to my Instagram, which is RedbeardRants1, and message me the word automation. Hope you enjoyed. Peace.